You replay that one conversation for hours. Maybe it happened 3 days ago. Maybe 3 years ago. You said something. They paused. Their voice shifted half a tone, and you caught it. And now, at 1 a.m., you're still turning that pause over in your head, trying to decode what it meant. Whether you said too much, whether they're quietly hurt, whether you should send a follow-up message or finally let it go. You can't, and you don't understand why. Here's what's strange. The people around you don't seem to do this. They have a conversation, walk away, and forget it by dinner. You watch them laugh about something they said yesterday, and you can still hear, in vivid detail, every awkward beat from your own week. You've told yourself this is overthinking, a flaw, something to fix. A friend told you to just let it go. You've tried to let it go 100 times, but the loop won't break. And the reason it won't break isn't what you've been told. It isn't weakness. It isn't insecurity. It isn't because something is wrong with you. The loop is doing a job, and once you see what that job is, you'll never feel the same way about your own mind again. Start here. The replay isn't a malfunction. Your brain isn't broken. The loop is your nervous system trying to finish a task it never got to finish in real time. In any conversation, there's the words people say, and then there's everything underneath the words. The pause before the answer, the half-second hesitation, the way someone's eyes flick to the floor when you brought up that one thing. Most people only catch the words. You catch the rest. And when you catch more, you have more to process. Think of it this way. A normal conversation, for most people, holds about 3 or 4 pieces of information at once. For you, the same conversation holds maybe 10. The words, the tone, the shift in posture, the thing they almost said but didn't, the thing you almost said but didn't, the whole emotional weather of the room. You're not consciously tracking all of that. Your nervous system is doing it underneath you, quietly, the entire time. So when the conversation ends, the others have already filed it. You're still holding 10 open tabs, and the replay, at 1 a.m., is your brain trying to close them, one by one, in the only quiet window it has. Which raises a harder question. If the loop is just a filing system, why does it hurt so much? There's actual research on this. In 2014, a team published an fMRI study in Brain and Behavior looking at people who score high on what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity. They put them in a scanner and showed them emotional faces, photos of strangers, photos of partners. The high sensitivity brains lit up more strongly in regions tied to awareness, empathy, and what's called self-other processing, the system that figures out what someone else might be feeling versus what you're feeling. Not a little more, measurably more. Then in 2023, Frontiers in Human Neuroscience described this trait as something present in roughly 20% of studied populations, 1 in 5. So if you've ever felt like you live in a different perceptual layer than the people around you, like you're hearing a frequency they can't hear, you're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. Your nervous system is catching signals at a lower threshold, the flicker in someone's expression that nobody else clocked. The half-second your friend went still when you mentioned their ex. You didn't decide to notice. You just did. And once your nervous system records something, it doesn't easily delete it. Which is exactly why, hours later, the loop won't stop running. But there's something else going on too. Something specifically about why the loop keeps starting up again the moment you try to sleep. All day, your brain is busy. New inputs, new conversations, new tasks, new people. The replay tries to start, but it gets shoved to the back of the queue. Then the lights go off. The phone goes down. The noise stops. And suddenly your mind has bandwidth again. And the unfinished file from this morning, or last Tuesday, or that interview 6 months ago, gets pulled to the front. A 2024 systematic review in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders looked at 35 studies on what researchers call post-event rumination, the technical name for exactly what you're doing right now. Across all that data, they found a moderate, consistent link between this kind of replay and social anxiety. Not a tiny statistical blip, a real, repeatable pattern. The reason is simple. Your brain treats an unresolved social moment the same way it treats an unfinished sentence. It wants closure. It wants to know how the story ends. Did you offend them? Did you miss something important? Is the friendship okay? Until your nervous system gets a clear signal that the case is closed, it keeps the file open. And in the silence of 2 a.m., with nothing else competing for attention, it pulls that file out and reads it again, and again, and again. So is sensitivity the same as anxiety? No. But they live closer together than most people realize. In 2025, Clinical Psychological Science published a meta-analysis of 33 studies, covering 12,697 participants. They wanted to map exactly how trait sensitivity relates to anxiety and to depression. The numbers came back clear. Trait sensitivity correlated with anxiety at a value of 0.39, with depression 0.36. In research terms, that's a moderate, reliable relationship. In plain terms, being highly sensitive doesn't mean you're anxious, but your wiring sits in the same neighborhood. Here's what that actually means for you. The same nervous system that lets you read a room in 2 seconds, that lets you sense the mood in a voice before the person knows they've shifted it. That makes you the friend everyone calls when they're going through something. That same nervous system also takes a real hit when you have to walk away from an interaction unresolved. The depth that makes you good at this is the same depth that makes the loop louder at night. You can't have one without the other. You weren't given a defective version of a regular nervous system. You were given a different model, one built for resolution, depth, and accuracy, and as a side effect, one that doesn't easily forget. That changes the shape of the question. Instead of asking, how do I stop replaying, the better question is, what is the replay actually catching? Here's something nobody tells you. A large amount of the time, the thing you keep replaying is real. The pause did mean something. The shift in their voice did signal that something was off. Your friend did go quiet for a reason. You weren't making it up. You were catching a true signal that everyone else missed. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that 7.1% of U.S. adults had social anxiety in the past year, and 12.1% will experience it at some point in life. Meanwhile, the high sensitivity trait shows up in around 20% of the population. There are a lot of people walking around carrying things they aren't saying out loud, and your nervous system, is one of the very few systems built to detect it. Now picture this. You have coffee with someone. They say everything is fine, but you walked away with a strange, low-grade unease, and you can't shake it. 3 days later, you find out they were going through something huge they didn't mention. You weren't paranoid. You weren't being dramatic. You read the room. The loop, in that case, was your brain holding the evidence until you could make sense of it, which leads to the question that actually matters. If sometimes the loop is right, how do you tell when it isn't? Not every replay is signal. Sometimes the loop locks onto your own fear and rehearses a story that isn't really what happened. The good news: there are 4 questions you can ask the loop to figure out which one is running. 1. What specifically am I replaying? A thing they did, or a story I'm telling about what they did? If you can name a concrete moment, a word, a pause, a look, the loop is processing real data. If you can only name a feeling about them, the loop may be processing your fear, not them. 2. Would a person who doesn't know me, watching the same scene from across the room, see what I saw? Sometimes yes. Sometimes the answer surprises you. 3. Am I replaying to understand or to punish myself? Listen for the tone of the inner voice. If it's curious, it's processing. If it's cruel, it's not the loop anymore. It's something else dressing up as the loop. 4. What would I need to hear to close this file? Sometimes you already know. A small follow-up message. A clear answer to a question you didn't ask. A decision to let one specific thing go. Naming what the loop wants is often enough to start giving it that, instead of running the same scene at 1 a.m. for the 11th time. But there's a cost to all of this nobody talks about. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't make sense to the people around you. You had 1 coffee, you went to 1 meeting, you answered 3 text messages, and by 8 p.m. you're flattened. The reason isn't that you did less than them and got tired anyway. It's that you did much more than them, just invisibly. You ran a parallel conversation in your head during the meeting, tracking who was upset, who was pretending, who needed someone to notice them. You read your friend's text 3 times to decode what they were actually saying underneath the words. You held the emotional weight of every small moment for hours after it ended. That's labor. Real labor. Your nervous system has been processing all day, and nobody can see it on the outside. So when people say things like, "Why are you so tired?" you don't have a clean answer. The answer is, you spent the day reading the version of reality everyone else got to ignore. And then on top of all that, the replay starts. Each unfinished conversation pulls a little more energy. By the end of a long week, you don't just feel tired, you feel emptied. This is also why your alone time isn't a luxury. It's the only time your nervous system gets to actually rest. Which brings us to the part of this you can actually do something about. You don't close the loop by trying to forget. The loop is too smart for that. It knows you're stalling. You close it by giving it what it's been asking for. Here are 4 ways. 1. Name out loud, to yourself, what you actually noticed. Not the story, the data, the voice shift, the pause, the phrase that landed wrong. Saying it makes it real and finite, instead of vague and infinite. 2. Decide whether it needs an action. Sometimes the answer is yes, a follow-up message, a real conversation, a question you should ask the person directly. Sometimes the answer is no. What you noticed was real, but it isn't yours to fix. Either answer closes the file. The thing that keeps it open is not deciding. 3. Separate what they did from what it means about you. The loop's favorite trick is jumping from "they paused" to "they're upset" to "they're upset because of me" to "I'm a bad friend" in about 4 seconds. Watch the jump. Each step is a choice you can refuse. 4. Give yourself credit for what you caught. You read something real about a human being today. Even if you can't act on it, that perception is a skill, not a problem. The loop quiets faster when you stop treating its work as proof you're broken. Because you are not broken. You never were. If you've made it this far in the video, you're probably already someone who can feel when people leave a conversation unsettled. You're the friend people text at 2 a.m. You're the one who notices when something is off in a room before anyone says a word. You don't replay conversations because something is wrong with you. You replay them because something is right with you. A depth of perception that most environments aren't designed for. The world doesn't always reward this. Quick people, loud people, surface people often get more attention. But the people who eventually feel deeply understood by a friend, a partner, a therapist, a teacher, are almost always understood by someone whose nervous system worked exactly like yours. Someone who replayed the conversation enough times to actually hear what was underneath it. So the next time the loop starts at 1 a.m., try this. Instead of fighting it, ask it what it's trying to tell you. Listen for 1 sentence. Then put the file down. The loop isn't punishment. It's the same depth that makes you the person someone, somewhere, is incredibly lucky to be known by. So here's why you replay conversations for hours. The loop is not a glitch in your wiring. It's a high-resolution nervous system trying to make sense of high-resolution data. Pauses, tones, micro-expressions, half-said things that most people never registered. The research backs it up. About 1 in 5 people are wired this way. Your brain catches more, holds more, and needs more time to file it. Sometimes the loop is right. Sometimes it's catching your own fear. The work isn't to silence it. It's to give it what it actually wants. A clear name for what you noticed. A decision about whether to act. And the recognition that what feels like a problem is, in a quieter way, one of the most accurate instruments a human being can carry. So here's the question to sit with. The next time you catch yourself replaying a conversation, can you ask, what did I actually notice that nobody else did? And what is that perception worth if I stop treating it as a flaw? If this video found you, you already know there are more of us out there than it feels like. Subscribe. We make videos like this for people whose minds work the way yours does. You're not alone in there.